Hello, everyone. Lisa Patterson here. Welcome, externs. This is a unit on vicarious or secondary trauma. This is a unit that I have added to this course after starting last year because I talked to a lot of attorneys, especially in public interest, but in any sector of legal practice that deal with the issue of a secondary trauma or vicarious trauma as a way to cope with being an attorney. And I'm going to define that in a minute. But I wanted to recognize that even though the externs in our program are dealing only with not-for-profits, and one of the right readings that you have from the ABA does deal with the topic of working with children's trauma, I hope that you will think of this in a broad sense and think expansively in terms of the effects of any kind of any version of this that extends to all kinds of different kinds of practice. So what I talk about, what they talk about when they say vicarious trauma, sometimes they call it secondary traumatic stress or compassion fatigue. There's a lot of ways to talk about this concept. It dates back to about the 1990s, as you'll see from the readings. But it's basically the idea that someone in a helping profession, someone who is working with other people, such as an attorney, will constantly be absorbing the secondarily the stress, the trauma, and the negative emotions that come off of their clients, who are the ones who are actually experiencing the trauma. But the constant influx of that information, the empathy or the sympathy or the caring that you have for that person, the need to have compassion for them, which is what brought you to this profession or to this job, constantly wears you down because you are feeling those feelings are being hit by them, and they rub off on you. It has been in one of the articles, they talk about this being a behavioral toxin, and meaning that it spreads, it's very contagious. So when we talk about vicarious trauma in a law office setting, let's say it's in a legal services provider where people are in the clients are in crisis, or a DA's office where you are hearing constantly about heinous and violent crimes that are really disturbing in the facts, or on the other side, a public defender where people are having their lives really affected by the consequences of what's happening, whether, maybe they're unjustly being punished, or their situation is such that their life will never be the same. So all of these things are things that are terrible that are happening to other people, and they're not only rubbing off on you as the first person to talk to them, but all the other people in your office dealing with those clients are dealing with it too, and you're picking up their trauma. So it starts compounding, and it can become almost an atmosphere in some offices, depending on how it's managed. So you'll notice that a lot of organizations that deal very much with difficult client situations will go out of their way to insert a positivity or celebrations or other kinds of techniques, ways to talk things out, ways that they've developed to talk to each other or allow each other to vent, that help disperse that energy, if you will. So that's sort of where vicarious trauma puts us. And in other professions, really anyone who's dealt with the public or in the medical profession, people don't come to you on their best day, they come to you on their worst day. And so there's constantly that transference of negative emotions and energy onto you. And some people call it emotional labor as well. So this is the concept that we're talking about today. And so the legal profession struggles with this. It is partially the reason, I think, for a lot of burnout in the legal profession, a lot of substance abuse and other self-medicating techniques among attorneys that are not healthy for them. And so it's something that is becoming more and more prevalent in the way that lawyers are educated and the way that lawyers are supported throughout their career, but it is still a fairly young concern for the legal profession. A lot of The traditional sort of lawyer mentality is just be strong, there's no time to be weak about anything, just power through things, gear up and do the thing. So, we're fighting against that to say, no, take care. You can't be good for anyone if you're not taking care of yourself. Let me just say, as a side issue, all of self-care, whether it's directly related to this kind of secondary trauma or just general working hard or feelings of worthlessness or that we all have, or perfectionism or imposter syndrome, or anything that may impact your mental health. We're going to have a whole self-care week, by the way, later on, so I won't get into this 100%. But all of that becomes not just something that I care about for you because I care about you, which is true. I want you all to be very happy, healthy lawyers and be able to do this job that we really love to do in a healthy way without destroying yourself. It's also, though, from the point of view of the profession, an ethical issue, if you think about it. So you cannot fully, truly, competently represent your clients if your capacity is diminished. So if let's take the example of secondary trauma or vicarious trauma, is some of the symptoms are interfering with your sleep, making you irritable, making you think in very black and white terms and losing your ability to think about nuance and gray areas in an argument. And so it's affecting your mental capacity to think, basically. Physically, it may be making you sick, give you headaches, force you to take time off because you can't function, or you're having, you have upset stomach, or you are abusing substances more than your body can handle to cope with what you're going through. All of those things, of course, everyone cares that that's happening to you, but it's also affecting your clients. And so to some extent, this is an issue that concerns the profession with a capital P, because the whole point of a healthy legal profession is that the lawyers need to be able to be at their best, to do their best work, right? So if you see resources offered to you, you're going to see one of our readings is by the ABA, who talking about this as an issue. There's a real business reason or a real professional reason why these resources are being developed. And it is partially because people care about your well-being, and it is also partially because it'll be bad for the profession if everyone is walking around really, really a mess. So just bear that in mind. This isn't just us softening up on lawyers or making them coddling them, and when they used to be tougher in the old days. This is really something that has always been a problem, has always been something that has not been managed very well in the legal profession, and is actually getting better. So to that end, I'm going to leave you with some readings. You're going to see in Brightspace that I've given you some readings about vicarious trauma from legal sources, talking about what it is, how it affects clients, some storytelling around what it looks like, how to recognize it, how it affects people. But I also have this great resource for you as well that I want you to be able to take. It'll be a PDF of a scan that you can download and hold on to. It's from this brand new book that I love. It's called The Flourishing Lawyer, A Multidimensional Approach to Performance and Well-Being. It's by Heidi Brown. Looks like that. I have it in my office if you ever want to come look at it. I'm going to give you some pieces of it, because not only we talk about, okay, here's this issue that we all have. I had a student come talk to me about working at the DA's office and having heard about a terrible case, and just, it was very upsetting, and sort of working through, well, so how do I shake that off? What do I do if I hear this every day? And I said, well, just out of curiosity, what did your supervisor tell you? Did you ask them how they deal with it? She said, oh yeah, he said he just goes home, has a glass of wine, and goes to bed. Right? So a lot of us are talking about this, but nobody seems to always, come up with a great solution at the end. What then do you do? So there's a lot of self-care directives. There's a lot of things in the readings that you've heard before, but I think are bear repeating, in terms of get exercise, setting boundaries, eating well, sleeping well, all of those things. And those are easy to make lists of, to be honest. I've read many articles and gone to many presentations about self-care, and it's very easy to list those things off. It's very difficult to get all those ducks in a row when you're in the middle of it. So one of the reasons that I love this book, it's, like I said, it just came out, so you guys are the first ones who are going to get to see it, is she really gets into a lot of the psychology behind what makes you feel better. And so I'm going to give you not only the chapter where she talks about vicarious trauma, but she has a couple of supplemental chapters earlier on that talk about emotional regulation and social interaction as ways to combat burnout and combat the kinds of emotional turmoil that emotional trauma creates. And so there's a lot of really specific lists and exercises and hints for you to take, like not even hints, like actual worksheets that you can fill out that I think are excellent. If you're that kind of, if that's your thing, I think it could be much more concrete as a way to manage it. So one of her big themes is positivity, which also sounds very squishy, but it is absolutely science based. So there are studies that prove that a positive outlook or a positive approach is actually psychologically more expansive to your mind than a negative approach. In other words, your brain is much more likely to be creative and receptive to ideas and just much more active when it is thinking in a positive. In other words, using words like, yes, let's go do that, or saying the same sentence, let's say positively versus negatively. So instead of saying, yeah, I've never taken a course on criminal law, you could say, I've yet to take a course on criminal law. I'm looking forward to it. Same idea, expressed in a negative way first and in a positive way second. Putting things in positive terms or having positivity actually makes it changes the neurons in your brain. It changes the chemicals in your brain to make things work better. And it actually elevates your mood as well while we're doing it. So she has a lot of exercises on positivity that I think some of you may really respond to. So I wanted to give you not just a description of the problem without any kind of tools to help you. And certainly, by the way, this is a good time to mention, in addition to when we do it in self-care, that a lot of the hard work that we do in a helping profession is something that we sometimes need help with. So there is absolutely no shame in seeking out therapy or other types of support if you find yourself struggling and sort of getting stuck in a negative space, whether it's specifically because of this kind of trauma or just because of overwork or other things that you're struggling with. So do, as you're a student, still take advantage of the resources on campus and check out our student counselor if that's something that would help you. If that is not available to you for some reason, or if you've already used up the time that you have with them, try to seek out other areas where you can get counseling as well, or reach out to people to help you, because there are times when there are situations that you just can't see the whole picture for yourself, and it's just helpful to have another person to bounce it against who is really trained in those situations. Most of the time you'll find you're not the only one that goes through this, and it's a fairly common thing, and they can really help guide you. So that's something I will just put a plug in for. These are all great to read up books about and to do exercises about and listen to me about. But, sometimes it's really good to know that in your toolbox also is seeking, therapy or counselor, because I think more lawyers would be happier if they availed themselves of that resource. And they're really excellent. So your EAP, your employee assistance programs at your future employers, or maybe even at your current employers if you have a part-time job, and also through the bar associations, usually have a multitude of resources for mental health and counseling, and substance abuse and other things. So do check those out if that's something that you think would help you. And like I said, it's not a failure on anyone's part if they seek that out. Oftentimes it's just like, think of it as joining a gym, right? Or getting a library card. It's just something that's out there that's available that'll make your life better, that you can sign up for, that you can take advantage of. So it doesn't have to have any more stigma than that. Of course, it is not always easy to do, but I encourage you to do that. Especially if you find yourself dealing with this kind of vicarious trauma in a new space where you haven't seen it before. Maybe it'll help to talk it through with someone. So that's all it is for me. I will take myself away so that you can actually read the experts' words in the readings. I hope this is helpful to you in your spaces at our externship placements, because I know wherever you are dealing with some version of this, or at least you will be at some point in your career. Like I said, even in the private sector, you're still oftentimes seeing people on their worst days, or at least when they're going through something really difficult. So it's very, very hard not to absorb their distress when you're working with them. You're their problem solver. So some bit of their problems sticks to you, and this is how you get rid of it. So not easy, not 100% effective all the time, and just live with the idea that it's never going to be perfect, but the more you can chip away at it and just let some of it go at a time and just keep going, and see this as a way to just manage day to day to get to the next point without getting too burned out. That's what our goal is. It's a hard profession, but this is how you cope with those pieces of it. So thank you all. I will see you the next time, and have a good week.